I'm Matt Beagle with your Strat-o-matic Strategy of the Month. This month we're going to look at very specific pitching targets in Strat-o-matic Baseball Online. Remember, you can choose for your starting pitchers either a 4-man or 5-man rotation or a hybrid of the two. The benefit of the 4-man rotation is you have one less roster spot and therefore you're going to save some money on your overall starting staff. The 5-man rotation gives you 5 different pitchers for matchups, and those pitchers are generally a little bit cheaper than the 4-man. There's a surcharge to get a 4-man rotation. So let's look at some of the targets for each. In the 4-man rotation, some of our favorites are R.A. Dickey at $6.5 million and Zack Greinke at $5.2 million at the top end. If you want to try to build a cheaper 4-man rotation, some targets include Yovani Gallardo at $3.9 million, Homer Bailey $2.27 million, Bronson Arroyo at $1.31 million, and Ian Kennedy at $860,000. So those are some guys you can try to get on the low end if you want to go really cheap with your starting staff. If you do a 5-day group, there's a few more starting pitchers, but we'll focus on the cheapest ones. The cheapest ones there that we like, Clay Buchholz, $1.36 million, is one of the best bargains in the set, I think. It's not a great card, but it is a usable starter for just $1.36 million. Jeff Carson's at $2.23, Anibal Sanchez at $2.24, Drew Smyly $2.27, Alex Cobb at $2.39 million, and Sean Markham at $2.49 million. So again, if you could use those bottom 5 if you want to do a very inexpensive rotation with 5-man rotation. Another hybrid strategy is to get 2 of the better 4-day starters and maximize how many starts you can get out of there. You get almost half a season worth of starts out of just those 2, and then go inexpensive with the bottom 3. So you might start with a R.A. Dickey and Zack Greinke at the top end, and then backfill with Anibal Sanchez, Drew Smyly, and Clay Buchholz to try to give you an overall decent rotation. And again, half your starts will come from your top 2 starters, so it's a nice hybrid rotation. In the playoffs, that becomes very important as those top 2 starters get the extra starts that you need in the most crucial series. When you're looking at bullpen, the first thing to remember is that outs come cheaper. There are 20 pitchers out there, 20 relievers, who have as good a card or better than Justin Verlander and Clayton Kershaw, the 2 top pitchers in the set, both in cards and expense. But since this is a budget league, you want to get the most outs for your dollar. Building a deep bullpen with a cheap pitching staff has been a very successful strategy in Strat-o-matic Baseball Online. Some of the low end of these 20 pitchers, so if you want the best bargains, Ryan Cook at $4.31 million, Jim Johnson $4.2 million, Wilton Lopez $3.71, J.J. Putz has a really nice even card at $3.54 million and is a closer, Mitchell Boggs $3.26 million, and Joe Smith at $3.12 million. So there's great cards you can get, as good as any starter's card in the set, and you can get them for about half the price. Also in Strat-o-matic Baseball Online, I always notice that the left-handed relievers seem very inexpensive. You can get usable guys for less than $2 million. Eric O'Flaherty has a great card, $1.15 million. Some other guys in there, Sean Marshall, $1.21 million, Troy Patton, $2.65 million, and Jeremy Horst at $2.07 million. There's even some usable really cheap guys in Rex Brothers, Sean Burnett, and Wesley Wright, who cost you $710,000 or less. Again, not great cards, but usable and very inexpensive. If you want right-handed relievers, there's not nearly as many, and they're not quite as much of a bargain. I really like Joe Nathan at $2.76 million as a closer, and Steve Cishek, who can close, $1.35 million. He's not really great against lefties, but he's real good against righties, and he's really not going to embarrass you by giving up a long ball or giving up too much against left-handed hitters. So there's some other good targets. Rafael Soriano, $2.52 million. Sam LeCure, $1.93 million, or some other good bargains that you have from the right-handed side of the pitching mound. Finally, you try to maximize the minimum. Look for some guys at the 500,000 range or so that can contribute. Look for those when you get to the 500,000 list. It's long. Look for the 9 Ls or 9 Rs, because usually those guys may have one good side of a card, and you can have them avoid the other side of the plate with your manager settings and still have them as effective as a matchup person, and then use them as your mop-up if you need extra hitters or extra innings at the end of the game. Finally, look for there's a couple minimum guys that are backwards. So that if you look at the right-handed pitcher who might be a 9L or be very good against left-handers, LaTroy Hawkins and Rafael Dolis are that way, for very inexpensive to get a backwards righty. And left-hander, I got to check my list here. Lucas Lutge of Seattle is a lefty who's backwards, and those can be very effective again for those unusual matchups. They're not the normal pitchers, so they can be very effective because no one else has them. Also, if you need some starting pitchers for the minimum salary, Garrett Richards and Alfredo Simon cost you about $500,000, and both, you can get by with. They're not going to be good, but if you need that extra pitcher on the end of your roster, those guys can help fill it for you. With the Strat-o-matic strategy of the month, I'm Matt Beagle.